All right, we are here with Christian Taylor. And Christian, if you just want to introduce yourself, what sport you are, event, and all that fun stuff.
Thanks, Jody. I am Christian Taylor, U.S. track and field athlete, specifically in the triple jump, two-time Olympian, uh, four-time world champion, and a proud Florida Gator. Yeah, that's it.
That's great. And you also dabble in the 400.
Yeah. My secondary event is 400. I can't say that's my pride and joy, but I have a secret obsession of it for sure.
That's great. All right. So what has been your experience and the current reality in the midst of COVID-19?
So now with this pandemic of COVID-19, of course, there's the reality of competitions being postponed or being canceled, the Olympic Games being postponed, training completely going off the rails, and not being able to. I train at university, and because universities are closed, those facilities have been closed. So going to soccer fields, and as long as there are not too many people out on the soccer fields, then we're able to work out there. I also live in Jacksonville, Florida, so I was doing some training on the beaches, but the governor has now closed the beaches off, so that has changed. There's been a lot of adaptive moments at times of challenging moments, but I've always tried to just be optimistic through it all, and just realize and recognize that everyone is in the same boat. Everyone is having to be flexible. Everyone is having to deal with some kind of adversity, and I just choose to be positive with it and show that energy, share that energy with my teammates, with those on social media, and then anyone I encounter. But I'm also very grateful to be healthy at this time, that my family's healthy at this time, and yeah, just really try to find the silver lining in everything.
Can you share about the most difficult shifts you had to make in this time?
The most difficult shift I'd have to adjust to at this time would have to be finding a positive outlook on the Olympics being postponed. It was the right call, for sure, for the health and safety of society, but mentally, the 4-year clock started for me as soon as the Olympic final ended in Rio, and it's something I've envisioned. It's something I prayed over. It's something I've trained towards for a long time, and to know that now the finish line has been moved back. There's been an adjustment. It's difficult, it can be frustrating and confusing and just of a time of uncertainty. That was something I was holding on to, getting ready for the trials, and I've, like I said, I envision. I'm such a visual person, and I saw myself competing in Tokyo. It's as I said before, we have to be flexible and we have to be understanding. But for me, mentally, just knowing that the date has changed. 365 from now. The countdown restarts or is adjusted. That's been a bit of a mental test for me, but as I said, I'm just trying to share that positivity.
What are some other things that are helping you handle just everything being postponed?
Yeah, so with the challenge of the postponement, with the trying to get through this, one thing that's really helped me through is being just close to my pastors. I've spoke to them actually yesterday, but yeah, I would say really weekly. Just I'm so fortunate to have a good relationship with them, and every week we're checking on each other. How they're always saying how can we help you spiritually, emotionally, physically. And the physical part is fun because they always say if you need somebody to run with or jump with, they like that. And so we do keep it fun, we keep it light, but just being able to vent with them and just change that perspective, and they've kind of helped me actually big time with that, because I was, as I am with you, I was very honest of just being heard and almost feeling let down that finish line was moved, and they just really have given me, whether biblical stories or times in their life that they had adversity, but that how God has used these tests and enable them to become now testimonies, and so that is now how I've tried to change my perspective and use exactly where I am, to one day almost write that story. And so even with my fiance, we're talking about this and we're praying about it, but she's saying journal, 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 because one day, someone's going to say, how did you get through a tough situation? How did you, when you didn't know what was going to be on the other side, what did you focus on? What were you thinking about? What were you praying over? And so, yeah, I guess what I would say to really answer your question is just having the right people around you, having that right circle that can really speak life into you.
Yeah, it makes me think of, in the Bible, they talked about Ebenezer's, like those remembrance stones. Like we are in the midst of writing those remembrance stones and like picking those up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, one feeling or emotion that people could be feeling during this time is grief. Is that something that you've experienced in this time at all?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, with this pandemic, there has been a lot of grief, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. Or I could say it hits home. Actually, my fiance lost her grandfather last week, and so this was very difficult because, as you've seen on the news, that countries are not even allowing people to have funerals. And so this is very difficult because it's a gathering of people. And so it's really hit home because, again, we've got the distance. And so I can't even be there to comfort her and be a shoulder to cry on. I'm trying to do my best virtually, but that's difficult. But, for her and her family, having to deal with, can they have a burial, even if they're socially distanced, and just being able to let him, find a restful place. So that's been and has been a bit difficult in this time. There's the reality that the death count is continually climbing, but what I've tried to put to her and what my pastors helped me is it's that, we should look at death as a celebration. These are now people that are going to be with Jesus, and at least this is the hope. It's to be absent of the world is to be with him. And so this is how we've tried to really take a difficult situation and turn it into something positive, that her grandfather now gets to be with her grandma who died 10 years ago, and they've been separated for that time. And so we really just try to look at it like a celebration, even with in the midst of these times.
Yeah, celebrating virtually, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You talked a little bit just before about having just, good people around you in this time. Is there any other advice that you would give to athletes that are in a similar situation?
Yeah. So I really, T-Mobile has the Fave Five. Yeah. And so, and my pastor always talks about how he can tell your character, how he can tell your who you are by the five people around you. So I really try to instill that, whether I'm mentoring or even with athletes. Surround yourself with people that speak life into what you're doing. When you're training, there are those people that are always trying to shortcut. When you're training, there's those people that are, no matter what you have, it's so difficult, and they make the weight even heavier, and then you have those that are just uplifting, that are happy to be there, grateful to be there. And these are the people I try to cling to. It's not that I don't help the other people and try to be that person for those other people, but in your inner circle, I try to really keep those that, and we're human, so we have tough times, and sometimes we have to pull each other and things like that. But I try to keep the people that I guess run to the Bible, run to that verse. And now the challenge that my pastor, as I said, we spoke yesterday, and so the pastor is saying, hey, what are you standing on right now? What verse are you standing on? And I thought that was really cool. That made me kind of sit back and think, yeah, what am I can pull this story and pull this story. But he's like, in the midst of uncertainty, because this is not going to be the only time something you're in a period like this. Of course we hope and pray that there's not a pandemic that affects the world, but he was like, the curveballs are going to come, and what are you going to stand on? And so that is kind of what I'm thinking about now.
Man, that's great. That's really great advice. You talked about a lot of emotions. So there are so many emotions going on right now, just fear, anxiety, just worry, all the things. where do you turn to find hope?
Yeah. So the Bible is the prime example. I believe it's the answer key, and um, my pastors really stress that we don't have to like. There's no secret solution. There's no shortcut. It's like we've been given the answer key, and if you just refer to that, I mean, in all areas of life, you can find a way to deal with something or see how somebody else dealt with it, and using that parable to apply it to your life. And so in a time like this, where there's the stress, anxiety, just uncertainty, in the Bible it says that we should not worry or be anxious about anything. And it's like, yeah, so what am I so nervous about? And I always applied that to like my track life, but really enough to not apply it to my personal life. And so I know that sounds so weird. I can go into a championship final and think I'm not supposed to worry and it's all in God's hands, and I just want to do his will. But then worry, oh my gosh, like, am I going to be able to make the bus back, or or are there going to be massages available? Just stress and worry about like my day to day. And it says like, do not worry, do not be anxious about anything, like anything. And that was the, I know that sounds so silly, but it's not until this point that it hit me, like I'm not supposed to worry about tomorrow. And again, I don't want to put the message like, don't be responsible, like, because people will take that and be like, I'm gonna blow it all, YOLO, like live for today. No, no, no. Like, also think for tomorrow. Yeah. Like, plan for tomorrow. But like, just tomorrow's gonna have its own worries, so like, let me just take care of today. And so this has been really such a standout thing, in this time of anxiety, stress, uncertainty, worry, grief. I just really hone into that scripture.
Yeah, that's a really good one, and good caveat of just being responsible as well.
Yeah, I have to throw that out because there's some people that really run with, like, you give them an inch and they're like, I'm gonna do it all today. And it's like, okay, come on. Like, come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Well, there's so much isolation going on with COVID and everything. Where are you finding community? You said you talked with your pastors. Is there any other type of community in your life?
Yeah, so with the social distancing, of course, we have to be respectively, have our distances from people. But now virtual meetings, virtual community has been key. Yesterday, I actually spoke with the Boston College track team, and got to learn a bit of their reality, about being a college student, having online courses, complete online courses now. Their season being cut short, at nationals, at the indoor nationals, getting the announcement that there will be no nationals, that there will be no outdoor season. It's one thing to hear about it, but to actually hear from them how they're dealing with it, what it's like to be in that position as a senior. You don't get to go for that last glory moment. And so these were great takeaways that I had as of yesterday. But yeah, just online communities now. That everyone is at home, and so that is a special thing that you can just reach out. And there's so many people on Instagram Live and Facebook Live, and you can hop on there and just be a part of that. Even CNN is having their town hall meetings, nightly. So really pushing to hopefully one day make it on CNN, asking maybe my COVID question. But no, in all seriousness, it's virtual meetings, virtual community. That is just the reality of the times we're in now.
Yeah, definitely. We're doing this interview
Yeah.
virtually. Yeah. Yeah. Well, a lot of athletes will find their identity in their sport. But when it's taken away, like just like you're talking about, like you're at the championships and it's just stripped away. And there are probably a lot of those athletes, I'm not going to say everybody, but a lot of them are probably feeling very lost and empty. So what does it mean to you to have your identity in Christ?
Yeah, so I think this is a fantastic point. One thing I stress is, tr- really enough, not having an identity in sport. Sport is what you do, but it's not who you are. And one thing, or one example I try to be, is a gracious winner, a gracious loser. I try to remain humble. Things like this, these are the takeaways that people will remember. How far you jumped, how fast you ran. Yeah, that's great for a moment, but people, the standout features will be, well, did you engage with the crowd? Did you thank the volunteers? Were you know like were you humble? And God has humbled me on many occasions. Sometimes I thought I did it, and He's really slapped me, give me a nice slap, like, no, I did it through you, and so again, we have such a great relationship, like as a father, he lets me go out a little bit and reels me back in, but in in all seriousness, sport is just what we do, and we can use that platform, we can use this avenue of a way of showing God's love and His patience and His kindness, through success, but also even through failures. But the reality is, this is a valuable time. This is a vital time to actually find out who you really are. A lot of coaches say that they can judge character by when you're down in a game, and who's the one that is willing to fight, or when your back is against the wall. Well, now I think a great judge is when you have, you don't know what happens tomorrow. You don't have your sport. Who are you? How are you using this time? Are you still reaching out? Are you still loving? Are you still caring? And I think this is just like I said, a great time to learn about you.
You mentioned your relationship with the Lord. How does that relationship help you stand strong during this current period of time?
Yes. So my fiance and I talk about this daily. Actually, how lucky and how grateful we are for the relationship we have with God, because we don't know, honestly, we don't know, and this is going to sound so weird, but we don't know how people can go through a period like this and not have a relationship with Him. And I know that sounds, I don't know how it comes over, but the reality is we stand on our faith, and this is how we've tried to set our relationship, but just our lives. And for me, in these times, what am I standing on? I find I lock in the scriptures, and you know when you go to a grocery store, or when you're going to the bank, or the essential places now that we can go to, you do see the anxiety, you do see the stress over these. And yes, I can go out there and minister and decide, and say, hey, go to the, but what I try to do is maybe just be an example, maybe be able to bless somebody. Now, if you give somebody toilet paper, like, that's gold. Like, you could save somebody's heart by just giving them toilet paper right now, or let alone some disinfectant, and yeah, it is silly, but at the end of the day, like, it is a way to bridge that gap. It is a great conversation piece, and with that, I have been in grocery stores and just been able to been like, hey, like, how are you doing spiritually? That's one thing that I really just ask people, and yeah, sometimes it could come over a bit intrusive, but the reality, it's in these times, like, what is really important, and yeah, it's I don't know, and I really feel for those that don't have faith to rely on, because for me, I feel like it is a rock, and right now, if or it's a boat, and the seas are a bit rocky now, or the rug feels like it's being pulled from under you. My faith is in God, knowing that, like, He's in control of it all. If He wants COVID to be over, like, it's nothing. Yeah, and this is the confidence I have in Him, and so this is what I stand on daily.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm going to read you this quote, and just how would you respond to this quote?
Yeah.
So our greatest danger is not that we become atheists or people who don't worship God, but that we let idols coexist in our hearts with the true God.
Yeah. For me, the standout of this quote is having an idol. An idol can look like many different things to many different people. My pastors always talk about where your treasure is, where your heart is. And most people think that's money, but it's not true. That can be a relationship. That could be success. Your picture of success. That could really be anything. And and it's scary, to think about, but in these times, Christians especially have to, I would say, speak up about actually God being number one, God being the center, God being um, that person to stand on, these values to stand on. And that's one thing I want to be very clear that, in the relationship I have and the people that I meet and when I'm competing, when I'm grocery shopping, when I'm walking around, that people just say, yeah, there's something different about you. There's something different about the way you go about things. I could have really been angry in a situation. Somebody cut me off in the road, but I saw that you just had peace with it and you just let them go on their way. Why didn't you react this way? Well, you know, yeah, it's because like God is number one. God is number one in my life, and when he just becomes a center, and all these things go straight, that for me is really the key of being a Christian, and so I can say as human, I've had girlfriends in the past become the idol. I would put that first. Wake up in the day, what can I do in the day to make the day perfect for her? I've made success. I've made a gold medal an idol. I dreamed about it. I woke up and I daydreamed about it. It was like that was the goal. That was an obsession. And so I've had my share. And again, with the grace of God, sometimes I'm like, all the time, I say I don't deserve it, but sometimes I'm really like, God, why do you still like give me another chance? And I'm so grateful for it. Yeah, like he's just been nonstop. I don't want to abuse this. Yeah, so it's not that I'm again saying, yeah, he's gonna forgive me, I'm under the blood. No, it's not about that. But it's sometimes I'm just so unbelievably grateful, because again, I go astray, and he allows me to go astray. And I come back, and I admit that I've been wrong and that my focus was really at the wrong place. And like I said, now is the time for Christians to really just come and say, hey, put God first. Put God first in your day. Put God first in your tithe, and put God first in just a priority. Yeah, so I would say that is it. Do eliminate all the other idols and just focus on God.
And something you said earlier too about this whole situation with everything, I think times like this are going to surface those idols that we may not realize that we have been idolizing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Well, do you have any kind of final thoughts or suggestions, words of wisdom that you want to impart to people?
Yeah, I would say the two biggest takeaways I have now, um, generosity and kindness are more or just as contagious as COVID-19. And what I'm trying to say is, as Christians, these are two things that we can pass on without, with respect to the social distancing, not having to, but being kind to somebody, blessing them in some kind of way. Yeah. So sometimes it could really just be words of encouragement. Like, you just don't know how far this can go for somebody. Sometimes I can tell someone, yeah, you're being a great mother. Like, you just shine at what you're doing. Or I really admire single dads, just hanging out with the kids, because sometimes they just get such a bad rep, and it's like, hey, I just really admire your love for your kids, and so, like, really, words of encouragement sometimes can just go so long. And just having a generous heart. Again, it's not about money, but it's being generous with your time, and however that looks like to you, but you just don't know how far that goes. So kindness and generosity, I would say, pass it on. It's contagious. People see it and they want to, just reciprocate that, and just pass that on to someone else. And yeah, it could be something else that, you could start.
That's great. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for taking time and sharing all of this with us.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Jody.